Here I am in the StreamNative UI in my train instance train cluster. I've already selected the tenant and namespace where I'd like to deploy the connector, and that's public and default, as you can see here at the top. Clicking on connectors on the left side, I've got Pulsar syncs selected. I'll go ahead and select create sync. I'm going to go to Snowflake here. This is the Snowpipe connector. If you go to Snowflake streaming, that is the Snowpipe streaming connector, which is demoed in a separate video. For sync details, I'm going to call this Snowpipe. The subscription name will be my sub. That's the subscription that will get created on the source topic. For service account, I'm going to be using the service account called Snowpipe. That is the service account that I've created that has a service account binding, as well as syncs and consumes permissions on my default namespace here in public default. So this is not an admin service account. And I will be using the latest subscription position, so only messages that are published after I start the sync will get copied over into Snowflake. My input topic, I'm going to use a topic called Snowpipe here. And then for configuration, I recommend going over to the documentation, which I'll link to after the video. But to create an account or a user on Snowflake, there's a series of steps to get that user a key. So the user I created is called training. It is using a role called SN by default, and that role has the correct permissions into my database and my schema. Authentication secrets, I'm going to reuse the authentication secret. That's the private key that's created during this process here. And for host here, I'm going to use my Snowflake endpoint. The database I'm using is called Snowpipe that I made specifically for this test, and it has a schema called demo. I'm going to go ahead and submit this, and within a few minutes, you should see that the status shows as ready. Now that the connector shows as ready, I'm going to publish some messages to my public default Snowpipe topic. Here I am in IntelliJ. I'm going to be producing messages with an Avro schema in this example, corresponding to my sensor reading object. So I'm going to be using this one here, this producer. You can see I'm publishing to public default Snowpipe, and my sensor object has a few fields on it. If we go up and take a look at it, you'll see that there's a string, a float, and a long here. Going back to my producer, I'm going to go ahead and right-click on that and say run, and we'll produce those 10 messages. Now that we've produced the 10 messages, let's head on back to the UI. Here I've selected my topic on the left, and if I go to the Details tab, I'm going to see that there's a subscription called My Sub with a backlog of 10. Within a few seconds, you should see that the backlog goes down to 0. And that is the Snowpipe connector reading those messages and sending them over to Snowflake and then acknowledging them out of the subscription. Here I am in Snowflake, and I've gone into my Snowpipe database in the demo schema, and I can see that there's a new entry in my table. So if you don't see it, just hit refresh to confirm. Here I can see that it is. I'm going to do a select star from on that. Actually, I just need to double click it. And my warehouse is running, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit play on that. And you should see that there are now 10 messages here inside of the table.